I'd like to introduce you to Katerina Hencova. And Katerina is, I think I call her like Wonder Woman. She's super bright. She's talented. She's done things that most women in her field have not done. And she continues to focus on improving things so that she can add value to her clients. She's a financial planner and she has two superpowers. One is taxes. So the woman knows how to save money on taxes. And whether it's personal, corporate, she gives you ideas. And personally, I mean, our company has benefited from some of her ideas and prodding when I thought, nah, it's okay. Katerina came through in such a big way for us post COVID, and that was really helpful. The other thing she does well is she focuses on salary negotiation. Katerina has talked to so many people and has developed so many insights on how you approach salary negotiation, things to think about. And, she has a lot of case studies of what people have done and how they've been able to negotiate an even better uh, salary for themselves coming into companies. And she's just a wealth of knowledge and such an amazing, caring, smart, uh, just, good person to know. So, Katerina, I now hand it over to you.
Thank you, Christy, and good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you and share this information with you. So, as Christy said, I do have passion for helping people get extra money, and we can do that by saving money on taxes, preserving more in our pocket, or getting paid more. And sometimes my clients were able to capitalize on both. So really had a double whammy winning in creating more abundance for themselves. So I'm really excited to share this with you. Welcome to Salary Negotiation and happy Friday. What we're going to be covering today is why it's important to negotiate at all. Now, when we have the offer, what are the components in the offer that are negotiable that we can use to drive a better compensation package? We'll cover how to properly benchmark our value so we can request a reasonable amount that matches what we're bringing to the table. And we'll also cover some helpful tips and resources to improve our negotiation skills. So why is negotiation important at all? Well, besides leaving money on the table and getting paid more, it actually has an impact on money that you could have at the end of your lifetime. And that is if we account for someone who, let's say, does not negotiate at all throughout their entire working life, their career, they could be leaving 1.6 million plus on the table. And that is from simply the raises, bonuses, because those are usually also calculated as a percentage of the base pay. The money that you could potentially put into savings, invest, and the appreciation that you would earn on those saved, invested savings. So if we think of a career life being, let's say, 45 years, if we start working at, straight out of college at 22, and we work till 67, our full retirement age, over 45 years, we could give up 1.6 million. So if we think about, I'm 67, I had retired, and I have extra 1.6 million in my nest egg or retirement account, that's a really big chunk. That is really another home, right? So I could either have a vacation home, my children could be, graduating without student debt, and my house could potentially be paid off when I'm entering into retirement. So it's really important that we do take into consideration that it's really important to get paid what you are valued at, starting from the very first job if possible. There is also a compound impact of our compensation, and that is, like I said, the raises that we can subsequently get if we're working somewhere. Raise, even cost of living adjustment, is derived as a percentage of the base value of the base pay. So if I am getting paid below my value, below the market for the role that I'm performing, anytime there is either a raise or a bonus, it's now being calculated off of a lower amount. So I'm getting even a lower raise and a lower bonus. It also determines what I can or cannot put into my retirement savings because I can either afford it or not based on what I'm getting paid. And it also impacts the amount of money we will make in future job offers. So if we're switching a company, which is always a great opportunity to, let's say, get a kind of a big jump on your pay, rather than if you're negotiating internally within your company. Now, if I'm currently working at a company and I'm already being underpaid, let's say my role, the market for that is $200,000 and I am making 150 and I am now seeking a job elsewhere because I want to improve my compensation, what I'm most likely going to be looking for and communicating as a desired salary is maybe 175. So I may get that. Maybe I'll get the 200, but switching a company and perhaps going to ask for less because I was already underpaid in my previous job. So it really impacts how we'll negotiate what we'll ask for in the future, which then is continue to shrink what's available to us, let's say at the end of our career, or just simply even while we're working, saving, trying to invest, prepare for retirement. And there is also an aspect that is not monetary, and that is how we are perceived when we do not negotiate. So there has been a study done, and the results showed that people don't like people who do what they're told. And if a company prepares an offer, puts it in front of us, and we just accept it and sign it, we had done just that. On the contrary, if we self-advocate and we at least even question some of the items in the offer, it makes us look as though we know our value, we know what we're talking about, and it automatically positions us as a leader. And it also communicates to the company that because we know how to negotiate for ourselves and advocate for ourselves, it's a very high likelihood we will actually negotiate and represent the company and advocate for the company in the same manner. So an employer or your boss seeing that skill in you will really appreciate that because it creates trust that you will be able to go into bat for the company the same way. And now, if you are viewed as a leader, that now also opens you up to opportunities within the company. So whether that's visible projects, maybe you cultivate a relationship with your boss who now treats you as a trusted advisor. You're perceived to make their job easier, so therefore they'll lean on you more. And that all can lead to more compensation over time within the company. So what is negotiable in the offer? Usually when people come to me with an offer, they only talk about the base pay. And it's definitely an important component. It's really the top priority. However, it's not the only thing. And oftentimes people will believe that if the base salary does not match their request or their desire, they have to walk away. Hey, these guys cannot pay me what I'm worth. I really cannot take that. And they may even feel offended and disrespected because the offer came in really low. What's really important to remember is that there are so many pieces in the offer, and the compensation isn't just the base pay. It's really a compensation package just because of the additional components that are included. So good practice when the base salary doesn't come in at what you've requested is to negotiate the title. And you may ask, why would I negotiate a title if they cannot pay me anyway? And the thing is that it's just very easy to get a slightly higher title. Companies, if they cannot pay you what you want, they're willing to make these concessions, especially if it's less money out of their pocket. And if you get a slightly higher title, you can also negotiate with the company some sort of either incremental steps or a period of time over which your salary will rise to the level to match the title. And having a higher title, you also look a little better to outside parties. So if anyone, a company is paying attention to you, they're checking your LinkedIn and they see your title, if they really want you, they want to poach you, they'll be ready to make an offer at that higher amount. Another piece that can be used to bridge the gap between what was offered and what you're asking is equity. And people often get frustrated when the company does not have a kind of a not strictly, but clearly laid out plan on, who gets what amount at what level. And oftentimes, it's like that there really isn't anything specifically clearly laid out. And I just want to invite you to see that as an opportunity. Because if there is any ambiguity anywhere within the offer, it really plays in your favor because that means there is wiggle room to actually create what it is that you're seeking. Another way are bonuses, especially sign-on bonus. People ask me whether sign-on bonuses are dead. And I say the only reason they're dead in your offer is because you did not ask. Companies are very willing to give a sign-on bonus, especially if it means it will close the gap and you will say yes. And I have seen in one of my latest instances where sign-on bonus was offered, but there was still a gap. And by simply asking, the company doubled the sign-on bonus, which then closed the gap. If you are leaving something on the table from a previous company or from your current, let's say, consulting gig, if there are contracts that you would not be able to fulfill complete by getting a full-time role somewhere else, which then means loss of revenue, or in an instance where bonuses are going to be paid out soon in your company, but you would have left prior to that, and it's a full year worth of bonus, you definitely want to bring that up because it may not be worth it to you to leave until you get your bonus, or if, let's say, another tranche of equity is being vested. So these are pieces you definitely want to communicate to the company that will inspire them to really figure out how to pay you to get you to come over. Other bonuses are your typical annual bonuses. And, it's usually a percentage, 25, 30%, maybe 35. So again, if you need to close the gap, you can negotiate a higher percentage. You will have to maybe wait a whole year to get it, but it is there nonetheless. And what you can also negotiate is the frequency of your bonuses. Instead of getting them paid out every 12 months, having to wait a full year to get it, maybe 3 or 6 months could be the payment mode for you. And we all know cash today has higher value than cash in the future. And also commission structure. Oftentimes it is believed that commission structure is set and there is no wiggle room. And we actually were surprised with one company where the base was extremely low. And again, this candidate was so offended, felt disrespected, and said, "I cannot take this." However, the commission structure was really generous, at least the number was. There was lack of clarity around what is the commission paid on. So this candidate specifically had not worked for a really long time, was a single mom, had to move in with her parents at this point, and the situation was not conducive to everyone in the home. So it was really necessary that she gets on her feet and starts earning money. So we went back with a bunch of questions. What they were able to do was to increase the commission payout to 70%, which is really high. And primarily, we got clarity on what the commission is paid on. So even though the base was extremely low, she had some sense for what the commission would be, which would then create a substantial income where she could feel supported and also adequately compensated for what she was bringing to the company. Another set of components are the benefits. So we are used to the 401k match just being a percentage, let's say 3% of your earnings up to 6% or so. I think safe harbor is 4% these days. So that's what you would typically see. However, we also know that there are some companies that will have a whole different set of retirement benefits. Pacific Life, for example, they have excellent benefits, and depending on your role, they actually will deposit cash into the 401k plan. We have a client who works there and he just gets an injection of, big chunk of money into his 401k. And it's something that you would not normally expect in a 401k plan. But again, if they're trying to make you whole, really bring you over, they will do whatever they can to do so. And sometimes you may even request that you are put on an executive package of benefits, especially if the benefits that are being offered do not meet your needs and you do need some supplemental insurance plans, for example. I have a client who works at a company in NorCal, a name that you would understand and know, and she is an attorney within their HR department, making really good money, and has a young family, big mortgage, and her life insurance policy is about 300,000. So to really protect her family, she would have to get that insurance on her own. However, getting access to the executive packages, there is now an opportunity to, let's say, be insured for 3 million, which is what she currently needs. Another example I can give you is with a client who was leaving a globally recognized, publicly traded company, and she did have a disability policy within that package, and it covered up to 60% of her pay, but it also had a dollar amount cap, and I think it was $6,000 a month. She has 3 children. She is the breadwinner in the family. Her spouse doesn't work. So if she became disabled and couldn't earn, the family would actually be in trouble. So I asked her, can you survive on this? She said, absolutely not. So I said, instead of having to get a policy yourself to protect your family, have them put you on a better policy that they pay for. And now that saves her money and creates a package that actually supports her in the way that she needs to be covered. Another component is deferred compensation. So this doesn't necessarily put money in your pocket right away, but it allows you to defer a portion of your income, which you are not taxed on. So imagining family in California, both spouses actively earning, their earnings could easily be $500,000 a year, but perhaps the family only needs $300,000 to live on. The $200,000 that they would still get through pay would now be taxed at a very high tax brackets, 50% easily in California. So what they can do is defer it. It is not on their W-2 and their taxes are now lower. And within the deferred comp, there are investments available, so they can still position it the same way they would, let's say, in a brokerage account. You can also negotiate equity vesting to maybe scoot more money toward yourself sooner. So whether that's a schedule or the amounts or even the frequency. And also profit sharing. You know, if the company has that available and they cannot pay you the money upfront through salary, maybe they are putting a chunk of money into a retirement plan for you that will be available to you down the road. And besides benefits and the cash component, there are also other opportunities that may not necessarily result in cash now, but may lead to higher pay in the future. So that's perhaps negotiating the frequency of performance reviews. And this is especially helpful if you are negotiating higher title and you want to create some sort of a track or system to how your salary will match your pay down the road. You want to negotiate the frequency of your performance reviews because this way you are in front of your boss more frequently, always talking about what you're working on, what you are improving, how you are helping the company, and that gives them evidence for why you need a higher pay. So whenever there is a bonus available, promotion, you will certainly be considered. Um, you may also request that you are put on high visibility projects or put in leadership roles, which would again strengthen your position in the company, what you're delivering, and lead to higher pay. And you can also request that you're put on any accelerated training that would eventually get you to that pay because you're now higher trained. So now that we know what is negotiable, there is also kind of a lower priority list of things that you can use in the conversation to perhaps create a better work-life balance. So that would be with time paid off. And I'm sorry, paid time off. And I'll give you an example of someone who was leaving a company where she was there for 9 years and therefore had accumulated 4 weeks of vacation paid. And she was entering a new company where their standard was 2 weeks. And there wasn't a whole much wiggle room on any of the components anymore. We kind of have gone through everything. So I asked her, is there anything else that you want that would make you, say yes to this? And she said that she would like more vacation time because she's used to having 4 weeks. And she was making $250,000. So a week was worth about $5,000. And I said, just mention to them what you currently have. So she did, and they met her in the middle and gave her another week. So maybe it's not cash in her pocket right away, but she is getting to spend more time with her family while she's getting paid. So if you have a desire around that or any necessity around specific leave, whether it's holiday, so you can be with family, or you have specific travel, definitely communicate that so you can create that space for yourself with your work. And schedule flexibility and remote work. So those are really big ones right now. Most people like working from home. And, if depending on where you live, if you can save time not being in traffic and not having to worry about dry cleaning and gas and wear and tear in your car, that's money in your pocket as well. So don't be afraid to ask that. Childcare, those are so expensive these days. So if that is something that you pay for, you certainly can ask about what benefits or programs the company has available for employees. If you are moving for the job, that's a no-brainer. You definitely need to request that that is compensated for. It's either reimbursed or they have a flat fee that they provide for any relocation. And in some instances, I have even seen the company pay the seller's commission if you're having to sell your home, let's say in California, moving to North Carolina. So they'll pay for the seller's commission in California, and they will also find you or provide you with a realtor to help you find home in your new location. If you have already landed and still don't have a home, you can definitely request that they provide some housing assistance. And that's something you would definitely want to negotiate up front, just so you have a place to live when you land there. Education benefits, those can have tremendous value, especially if you're planning to further your education. So tuition reimbursements, let's say MBA, in Irvine, MBA was over $90,000 5 years ago. I don't know how much it is now. So that could have a tremendous value to you. Or if you still have student loans, many companies have programs for that. And if a company can write a check for $30,000, $50,000 toward your student loan, that's a lot of savings to you. So that definitely has value. And you can also request that they support you in your professional development, whether they have leadership programs or mentors, or that they hire an executive coach for you. That is nothing to sneeze at either these days. Minimum $12,000, $15,000. And that will definitely support you in securing a higher paying role in the future. And if you want to be part of any networking groups or associations that will help you support the company, let's say Chief, that's a few $1,000s a year. It's for women only, but that's also nothing to sneeze at. So now that you know what's negotiable, how do we benchmark our value? So we know that what we're requesting, desiring, and asking for is actually reasonable and aligned with the market. So number one, you want to research the job title in your industry for the location where you live, where you incur living expenses. And you also want to account for the years of your experience. So, the job description will require an amount of years of experience. You want to just account for, okay, how much experience of this do I actually have? Do I have more? Do I have less? Because that may also dictate whether you put yourself lower or higher on the range. So once you have researched the job title, you will be able to identify a range for the role that is typically paid in that industry, in the location where you live. And here you want to quantify your experience. So not just the years, but actually the things that you worked on. What do you have experience with? Any achievements that you have acquired, earned throughout your career so far, and leadership and unique skills. So all of this really matters, especially if there were instances where you either have created extra revenue for the company, that's very easy to quantify, instances where you perhaps saved money to the company. So this could be a range of things. It could be perhaps you saved the company from a lawsuit, which we see in the corporate world, especially someone who, let's say, is a board member. How you have maybe prevented the company having a big loss due to an error, or if the company went through a transition and you led the company through that, and perhaps you did it in record time and smoothly, flawlessly, you definitely want to work that in to the salary range. And we also want to keep in mind that when a salary range is stated, what the company hears is that lower end of that range, while what we're most likely thinking is because, we've now accounted for experience, achievements, leadership skills. Of course, we're thinking the higher range of the higher end of the range. So when you are setting your target salary, you want to account for that, right? You don't want to give them, let's say, the range from 200,000 to 220,000, thinking, okay, I definitely track on the 220. The company will hear a lower number. So you actually may need to scoot it up a bit because the company may offer below or will try to talk you down. So you want to be prepared for that and have a gap in there for the negotiation. Now, when you have your target salary, it is not helpful if it's an even number, especially if I say something like $250,000. That sounds very arbitrary, and it sounds like a number that really everyone wants to get paid, right? So it will communicate that I can be talked down from the number because there really is, it has no legs to stand on. If you pick an odd number, you will be less likely to be negotiated with. It will communicate a number of things. One is you have done a really good research and you truly know the market of that role. Two, you really know your value because you've been able to narrow it down to such a specific number. And now they view you as, what you're talking about. So they will be less likely to want to lower that number. What they will do instead is try to figure out how to get you that number, or at least very close. You also want to know the value of the benefits package. So that is also within the company, what they're able to offer, and the ones that you want included in the package. And we went through a long list, right? In one of my workshops, I teach salary negotiation in a women's leadership program at the city of Brea. And I had a woman in there raise her hand and ask, can she ask about every single possible benefit? And you certainly can. It's not advisable because you may appear as just trying to squeeze out anything that you can without actually focusing on what is important to you, what matches your lifestyle, the way that you want to create work-life balance. So what I recommend is to create a list of the benefits and perks that you want in the package that are most important to you. You can also put them in order of priority. It's very helpful. So this way you focus on the ones that have the most value to you first, and then can work down the list. If those are not met, you can go to kind of to the lower priorities. Essentially, all of the things can be on your list, and you can even use the bottom ones to really create something, if let's say the top ones were not met. And it's also very helpful to have a walk away point. And this is not specifically from a standpoint like, hey, they cannot afford me or they don't value me, therefore I'm walking away. It's simply having an idea what you absolutely have to make to be able to live and cover your living expenses. That is a very fair request. You also may have a specific lifestyle that you want to live, and you want your work and your compensation to meet that. It's also a reasonable request. And at the very least, you want to have your value honored and reflected and matched by the company. It's not helpful if you are taking a job where you feel underpaid and you're entering the company already with some resentment, feeling like they don't value you. It will parlay into how you show up for that job, how you perform, and most likely you would start looking for a new role already right away. So you're not really even in that job. So how do we set a strategy now that we have identified how to benchmark ourselves? So you want to postpone the salary discussion up until you have a written formal offer at hand. And this is very crucial because the negotiation does not start until things are in writing. Now, the company may push you from experience, what I have seen, they will say something like, we need a number to put down on the offer. So therefore, they'll try to elicit a number from you. Do not give them a number. You want to give them a range and maybe state that based on the research, it shows that a role of this type is valued at X. So you blame it on the research and you also give a range. Don't forget to give slightly higher range because they're hearing the lower number. And it's really important to deflect. You really don't want to give a number and start it before it's in writing. So you can also say something like, why don't you make me an offer for what you typically pay someone in this role? Or you can ask them, what do you typically pay for in this role? Or what is the company's budget for the role? The reason you need it in writing is because there are many things said, not everything will be remembered, and you never want to accept something based on just a discussion without having it clearly laid out in writing. And the other component is that they will drive you to, share your base salary. But as we already discovered, it's a package, so there are so many other pieces to the offer. And you want them to put in writing what are the benefits and perks that are available. Now that you have your list of what's important to you, right? You have benchmarked your value, you have your target salary, and you have your list of benefits that you want, and you have your walk-away point offer, and start identifying the gaps that you will want to bridge, and start preparing talking points and list of questions that you will bring to the negotiation. And why I say questions, questions are a softer approach to communicate what you want. And when you're asking a question, you're simply making an inquiry. You're curious about what else is available. And this is specifically important for women when they negotiate. Women already negotiate at a lower rate than men. It's unfortunate. I get it. It is the case. And men, because they're expected to negotiate, they can be way more direct in their negotiation, and it's not perceived as anything. It's actually expected. Now, with women, if we asked as directly as men, we may be perceived as greedy, not grateful, high maintenance, prima donnas, and so forth. And it stems still from that old school thinking that the woman's salary is kind of just a bonus pay for the family because the husband earns the real income. And it's not the case today anymore. Not all women are married. Some women are not married to men. And in some cases, women actually are the primary breadwinner. And Unfortunately, it still has not adjusted. But if we know this, we can then prepare our negotiation to come through very soft, so it doesn't appear as pushy, and use open-ended questions to make those inquiries. So open-ended questions are questions that start with what, when, who, how, for what purpose. You want to use for what purpose instead of why. Again, it's softer, less invasive. So if you were to inquire about bridging some of the gaps, you could ask something like, what is the opportunity what is the opportunity for higher equity? Or what is the flexibility in this number? Or um, what role pays this, right? You want to find out what role do I have to be at to get that. You want to approach the negotiation as a conversation. By definition, negotiation is a discussion. It's a discussion around perhaps a topic that's not pleasant. However, it is just simply a discussion nonetheless. So you want to treat it as such. And it's really best to speak with the other person as if they're your friend. And together you are working on a collaborative outcome, trying to figure out together how the company can get you in. And sometimes people ask me, I've had this one person ask, should I tell them that I'm a single mom? And that is absolutely a no-no. We never want to share the personal reasons for why we need to get paid that amount. And that is because they're a professional doing a job and they're treating you as a professional and they want to be treated the same way. If we share a personal reason for why we need that money, it may be perceived as manipulative, right? We're trying to appeal to some emotions to get them to do what you want. Instead, if we put them in a good mood by being friendly and light and relaxed, their brain capacity actually increases by 31%. So you can do that by developing a rapport, making a slight joke. You don't want to make it self-deprecating. That's again a little manipulative. Something clever related to the industry, just to keep the mood light. If you get a chuckle out of them, that signals that, they're now with you. You really have them in a good mood. So they not only like you, now they're actually even smarter because their brain capacity is up. So they will definitely go to bat for you and try to get you what you want to make the deal happen. Because now they work for you. They want to work with you, right? They love you. And smiling communicates confidence. I know women are tired of hearing to smile more. And in a negotiation, if we're able to maintain a really light composure and smile, we'll be perceived as we're very confident. We know what we're doing. We've negotiated every single time. We know what we're talking about. And therefore, there again will be less likely to try to talk you down from the number. So here are some resources that you can use to benchmark your salaries. I think the top 5, many of you know. These ones I grabbed from ChatGPT, so take it with a grain of salt when you do the research, and maybe use AI to even create or find out other opportunities where you can benchmark your salary. Here, these books are really, really helpful, especially Never Split the Difference. So Christopher Voss is a former FBI hostage negotiator, and he can really negotiate his way out of anything. I mean, he gets free upgrades on the plane. He took liquid through TSA, you name it. He gets out of everything just by negotiating. He's also on Audible, so you can listen to his book. and he shares little snippets on negotiation on Instagram if you want to follow him. These two books, Ask for It and Women Don't Ask, are specifically for women. I just want to share they're kind of older, like 2008 time. And I noticed that, as I have done a lot of research on negotiation, it does change with time. It kind of expands into more emotional intelligence area. So some of these older books may just, sharing that they may not support you in the full way that you want. So just keep that in mind. These last three, they're from 2017 and on. Just want to share that. So that is what I have for us today in terms of information. You can certainly get in touch with me if you have further questions. And many of you are used to our firm always having a fun, generous offer at the end of a talk. And we do have one for you today. And our offer today is to review your offer. So if you are either waiting to receive an offer or you are currently interviewing and there might be an offer at the end of it, keep this in mind. You can contact us and get your offer reviewed at no cost. And we just ask three things. In order to review your offer, make sure you have an offer at hand, written, formal, it's in a PDF form or it was mailed to you. Number two, you have already done the research to benchmark, oh, there, celebration of offers and money coming in. You already have done the research, know what the value for your role is, and have your target salary, and also have a clear list of the benefits and perks that you want incorporated in your offer. So if you have these three components, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to review your offer and help you strengthen your position. So I think we have a few minutes on the clock, and I see a raised hand.
Yeah,
David.
yeah, David, and then there's a couple others in the chat that we want to get to in the short amount of time that we have. Katerina, this was great. So David, what's your question?
Just very quick question. I was talking to a leader not too long ago, and he talked about negotiating your exit package right up front. What's your thought on doing that? Because I think it can be a little controversial. Obviously, it's a great thing to do, but does require some nuance.
Yeah, great question. And for anyone at an executive level, it's definitely a must. And chances are that there will be a flavor of that in the initial offer, but you definitely want to have it clearly laid out. And it's tough because it may communicate to the company that you're already thinking of exiting before you even started. So you want to explain that you just want to have clarity where you both stand, because that can rather strengthen the relationship and the commitment that you have to one another while you're working there. And it's very common, or it's very normal that someone at an executive level would have that worked out and built into the offer, because if a CEO leaves a company, it's just slim pickings for what's open out there, rather than, let's say, senior manager roles, VP roles, because you can have several VPs in one company, but only one CEO, CFO. So yeah, it's a really great point that you bring up, David. Thank you for mentioning that. So yeah, bring it up in your offer.
It
Or
is
the
true.
negotiation, so it's
So
included in the contract.
yeah, before we go to John, Jackie had a question in the chat earlier. What's a reasonable number of items to negotiate, or an upper limit? To your point, you don't want to negotiate every single item.
Yes, so I would say 3 to 5 of really top priorities, like 3 to 5 that, let's say, you would not even take the job if those were not there.
Mhm.
right? But then if those cannot be met, or let's say only 2 or 3 out of the 5 are met, you can have a secondary list of priorities that will make up for, let's say, what wasn't met. Does that make sense? So if they cannot meet me on any of the things that have a monetary value, and I really value my time, and I am not willing to drive to the office, I may still accept the job if I get to work from home, right? Because that saves me a lot of time. That means time that I have to myself. I am either working out, meditating, I may be at a networking event, just kind of working on progress, furthering my development. So, just know what means, what has value to you. I hope that's helpful.
Okay, John.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Katerina. It was great list. The thing I would add on there, I was kind of I posted about the severance terms. The other one is change of control clause. Especially if you're going into a private equity owned company, you know they're going to sell. What's going to be your exit strategy? You may be taken care of, you may not be taken care of, depending on the private equity firm. So there's that. And then the other thing you might ask for, if you're looking to serve on boards or advisory opportunities, making sure that they're okay with that. Subject to their approval, obviously, you don't want to go to a competitor, but that might be another perk that you might want to get. And then to speak to the commuting piece, I've gotten car allowances or mileage or public transport, depending on where you are. So those are other levers you can pull.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. I had someone that got an offer and was very generous. It really came in exactly what they wanted. And they were not going to negotiate. And I said, you still have to, even if it's, let's say, a parking spot, like a preferred parking close to the building, you have to say something just from the standpoint of advocating for yourself. And I asked, and this was like a company that was also within the EV industry. So I said, would you like a vehicle? An EV vehicle. So she asked for car allowance. Another executive that I supported, she said what I should have negotiated was an elevated way of travel because she traveled by plane for her job. And she said, if I had lounge access, first class, be able to book a first class ticket, I would have been less tired. I would have had opportunity to rest and maybe like show up even better for the job the next day from her travel. So if that is part of the job, negotiate that, whether it's either a credit card that gets you the access to the lounges or that you simply are able to book first class tickets. There are many companies. I've met people at airports whose company will allow them to book first class. So it's possible, it's available.
Yeah, we had first class over a certain duration. If it was over 3 hours, so you
Right.
could do first class.
Yeah, I think EY does that. Over
Yeah.
3 hours, it's allowed. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Or are we at a time?
There were some questions I saw earlier about an example for the odd number.
Yes.
What does that look like?
Yeah. So the last number can be 0. It doesn't have to be, end in a 3, let's say. But instead of $250,000, it could be, let's say, $252,000, 590, something like that. Again, you want to be a little over, and they may go, huh? Like they may look at it like you're crazy, and that's okay because you've done your research and you've narrowed it down to exactly what the value of the role is. And it's okay if you end up educating them through the process. The companies don't know everything that's happening outside. They want to fill a role at the least amount of possible to preserve their budget. So if you enlighten them with new information throughout, it only strengthens that you know what you're talking about. So don't be afraid to use that.
Yeah, I will say from personal experience that tactic works in home buying as well. So yeah, great knowledge. Thank
Okay,
you so much for sharing it. Oh,
I'm
Christy's
sorry,
back.
everyone. My speakers went out, so I can't hear anything, but it seems like you can hear me.
Yeah.
So, Katerina, thank you so much. This was very informative. There's still a couple of questions. Reach out to Katerina individually and get to know her and ask a question. She is, as you can see, she's a wealth of information. And then there was a comment that Stacy made in the chat. Take a look at that, asking premiums for the benefits, et cetera. That's great. So take a look at the chat. We'll also send the chat out to everyone. And we'll see you next week. We have Michael Trust, who is one of our boot camp alumni, who is an employment attorney, who will be talking about things to consider negotiating in and negotiating out as well. And if you're having challenges while you're there. And then the following week, we have Brad Hayden, who's also part of our community, talk about AI, and he's going to have some really fascinating stuff. So a couple of really great things coming up. And thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Katerina, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We really
pleasure.
appreciate you. And
Thank you.
your phone and system lasted, my audio did not. But
I
happy
played the
Friday.
internet
It's a
down.
great technology day, right?
Yes.
Okay, bye all. Thank you.
Hey, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks
Have a
so
good
much,
Have a great
everyone.
weekend.
Bye. Take it easy.